This could be one of the biggest silly season catalysts we could expect. I don't want it to happen. The Italian media, including the likes of Formula Passion and Corriere dello Sport, are starting to moot the possibility of Alex Albon being pinned for a Ferrari seat in 2025, replacing the likes of Carlos Sainz potentially. If you ask me, I think at the end of 2024, easily both Ferrari drivers could leave. There is a very interesting paragraph which I think sums up the situation at Ferrari quite nicely. And I quote, "Ahem. However, the irreconcilability between Carlito's sacrosanct ambition to become world champion and Ferrari's determined intention to become Leclerc-centric, and now uncontrolled rumours are filtering according to which Vasseur hooked Alex Albon to have him in the red from 2025, to bring points and watch Charles' back. It's a plausible hypothesis considering the various circumstances, and that the contracts of Sainz with Maranello and of Albon with Williams expire at the end of 2024. For me, it's not a good idea, and allow me to explain why. First of all, have you seen what he's been doing at Williams lately? Over the last couple of races, and of course, during the British Grand Prix, even if they're just practice sessions, that Williams car is really good. They've been upgrading that car to not only actually improve themselves in the corners, doing a lot better in Austria than I expected, but also maintaining their best asset of a really high top speed. That car is something that Red Bull should really be afraid of. In fact, Adrian Newey does take inspiration from Williams on occasion. Williams aren't a joke anymore. They're really not. I easily peg them as the 7th fastest car this year. But Albon, he is on the ground floor of something big. It's quite clear with the investors that Williams have, they've easily made their money back, so they're going to be staying for as long as they want, and James Vowles now leading the charge and making good use of Logan Sargent, who was Jost Capito's folly, and now James Vowles is having to deal with it. They've got a really good package going on, and Albon being the team leader, why would you want to go anywhere else? With an entire pit crew and staff that support you and respect you for sticking with them when times are really low. That loyalty that Alex Albon has in spades will pay dividends for him, I guarantee you. And of course you might say, well, going to Ferrari, it's a dream. It's an historic team in Formula 1. Why on earth would you ever want to turn it down? But Williams is an historic team as well. Using the historic argument with Ferrari does not really gel well with me. It's a bit moot. Ferrari are the faster team at the moment. I mean, sometimes it feels like they're not, but with added investment, added eyes, and much more potential for the up and up and up and up, Williams are going places and they're a lot more exciting to be around than Ferrari. Another thing to consider here, for Alex Albon, Ferrari, much like Red Bull, is a driver breaker. We've seen the spirits of drivers broken like Fernando Alonso, Sebastian Vettel, arguably Charles Leclerc, who has now said that he's pretty much not going to question the pit strategies of Ferrari. He's just going to do what they say because it's easier. And not to mention the mood in Ferrari right now. Even though it's fine between the drivers, I actually think they're the most amiable driver lineup because Carlos and Charles actually like each other. There's no bad blood between them at all. But with their relationship with the team, it's quite shaky, with Carlos being even more outspoken, often actually going against them, and it's because of him defying team orders, which is what got him the win at Silverstone last year. While Charles is just basically trying to stay afloat and keep whatever's left of his spirit intact, Carlos is just railing against Ferrari all the time, and in fact he went on record recently saying that recent pit strategies and things that have been going on, including team orders, have actually made them out, Carlos and Charles, to be like fools. Ooh, I'm getting major Alain Prost vibes there. The moment you start dissing Ferrari and attacking their moral fiber and their code, then I don't think your time with Ferrari is going to be going on for much longer. And this all goes back to that earlier quote. It seems so pertinent. It speaks volumes to me. Carlos still has the desire to go for titles, and that's a big no-no for Ferrari, who are clearly trying to focus themselves around Charles Leclerc and keep him happy. They want to keep the monegasque for as long as they possibly can, whereas Carlos, no big deal really. After all, in 2021, they picked Carlos Sainz because he is a very solid driver. He, in the eyes of Ferrari at the time, would have been a perfect second driver to replace Sebastian Vettel. There'd be no awkward situations between he and Charles. He would do the job. He did wonders with McLaren. He was a real team player. He has a lot of confidence, and yeah, it'll be fine. But then Carlos started to race, and what happened next was not supposed to happen. He outscored Charles. This year, he is outscoring Charles, albeit barely. But in the 3 seasons he's been with Charles, he has outscored him 2-1, and that is not what they expected. Carlos is a lot more of a headache than Ferrari expected, and I think they kind of want him to go away. According to that paragraph, is going against their intentions. He is determined to get a world title with Ferrari, which is not what they actually want to have. They want a world title with Charles Leclerc on the trophy, not Carlos. They don't really care now if Carlos leaves, and they're actually starting to prepare for him potentially leaving at the end of next year when his contract's up, as well as Charles' contract's up. So maybe Frederic Vasseur has an idea maybe of getting rid of that potential souring of relationships with Ferrari, and you might instead want a driver lineup which is even less toxic. Maybe with an influence that's a little bit more positive, affable, willing to actually go with the grain of the team instead of calling them out all the time and calling them fools on record, which is a little bit bold of you, Carlos, but I feel your pain right now. Ferrari is not in a good place. Albon is a nice guy, and as that quote said, he probably would actually toe the line with Charles. But wait! Albon's done that already, and we all saw what happened, and he was lucky to get back in Formula 1 after that. I get it, driving for Ferrari is an absolute dream. So far, that dream is turning into a little bit of a nightmare. It's in a state of flux at the moment, with the management, including John Elkann, the CEO, really going at odds with the likes of the Scuderia team. In fact, actually threatening to bring them into the management fold instead of them being relatively independent. There's been a lot of musing about that over the last few months, and I think this might actually come to a head sooner or later. I actually do have faith in Frederic Vasseur turning the ship around and trying to make the Ferrari team a little bit more harmonious. He is a calming influence. He has done very well at the likes of Alfa Romeo. Even though their performance isn't exactly great, you don't really ever hear Alfa Romeo having angry exchanges with their team, their drivers not getting on. Things are relatively, sedate. But hiring Vasseur is not just because of his business acumen and his management skills, it's mainly for the fact that he and Leclerc get on. They were actually working together at Sauber and Alfa Romeo in 2018, and it's essentially them telling Charles, please don't leave us, or in Italian, per favore non lasciarci. But going back to Williams, they have so much potential right now, and they're starting to show it. Why would you want to actually give that up? 2024 could be even better for them. So why would you go to Ferrari, which at the moment their car, it's good, but it's unpredictable, it's unreliable, it's just uncertain. Whereas with Williams, you can't really get much lower than what they have been the last few years. The only way I see Alex Albon driving for Ferrari is if he gets to be the main guy, if Charles leaves at the same time as Carlos, and them, Ferrari, losing Carlos and Charles at the same time, with people rumouring of Charles Leclerc either going to Aston Martin or Mercedes, would be just as maddening as what Alpine did last year with Alonso and Piastri. Them losing Charles would actually them admitting that their plan from 2018 and 2019 would have been a failure. Back around that period, it was quite clear that you needed to have a young gun in your team to actually build the team around for the long-term future. We saw that with Red Bull and Max Verstappen. We then saw it with, indirectly, George Russell with Mercedes. He eventually then got there in 2022. They did that with Charles and Ferrari, and then they did that with McLaren and Lando. If Ferrari loses him and he slips out of their fingers, then they've lost it. Then Ferrari are going to be in the doldrums for a good long while trying to find a brand new talent, which admittedly could happen if they're patient with the likes of Ollie Behrman in F2. If he gets a second year, because he's already doing great with his rookie year in F2, I could easily see Ollie Behrman being the replacement for Charles Leclerc. And I'm not saying that just because he's British. Maybe Albon might be a good calming influence for Charles, less pressure. I think Albon would be a bit more tactful, but even then, I don't think it's a guarantee for them to actually get more success. But now I actually want to talk about some of the drivers I would actually put in instead of Carlos, rather than the likes of Alex Albon. Valtteri Bottas over the last few years has proven that he is the ultimate wingman. He has the backing of Lewis Hamilton because he easily toes the line. Sure, at the beginning of seasons he has a lot of fighting spirit, but that quickly fades away. He knows how to handle himself in a team. So to have Valtteri Bottas alongside Charles Leclerc, I think that would actually be a really good teammate, getting a chance to be with the front-running team and including the likes of Ferrari, mimicking sort of the time with Kimi Räikkönen in his second stint there, might be a decent shout. Bottas wouldn't complain, Bottas would toe the line, and he does have that previous with Frederic Vasseur at Alfa Romeo, and of course in his junior Formula days. I think that Bottas would be a much better fit. But then of course there's Mick Schumacher. Even though Mick Schumacher's no longer part of the Ferrari Driver Academy, I'm pretty sure that Toto Wolff would actually talk with the likes of Ferrari and get him back in there if the opportunity arises, because Ferrari, they would love to have Mick Schumacher back in the sense that he harks back to the past. He would easily fit a hole, and having Mick Schumacher and Charles Leclerc together, they might actually be a really good fit. I'm a little bit biased, but it's an option. but I think Bottas would be better. Then, of course, there's Daniel Ricciardo. I know you're all sick and tired of me talking about Daniel Ricciardo. We have yet to see the Pirelli tyre test about him being evaluated in comparison to Checo, but Ricciardo, there were rumours back in the day about him going to Ferrari because he does have that Italian connection. So maybe you have that sort of stabilising situation, his good humour, his good nature. It might put Charles Leclerc at ease, but again, that's a very, very tenuous idea. I don't think that might actually be the case, but it might actually be good to appease the early rumours from the mid-2010s. But then, of course, you might have Antonio Giovinazzi. He could actually have a tour de force and a return to Formula One. His stock went through the roof after Le Mans when he won for AF Corsa and the Ferrari hypercar unit in their first year back. He has actually proven he can be a very good driver, and sure, he had a very questionable time at Alfa Romeo, and he didn't really have the best time when he tried to drive for Haas in 2022 when he did that test, but he's proven he has the gumption. He can do well in other sporting categories. So maybe, to return the favour, Ferrari might actually parachute Antonio Giovinazzi in to fill in the gap for at least a couple of years until they can then find another substitute for a second driver. Or who knows, Antonio might prove them all wrong and be actually really good. Be the first Italian driver in that car since Giancarlo Fisichella. And who also has that best Sir connection and is doing well in another sporting category? Marcus Ericsson. Like Giovinazzi, he has thrived in other formulae, scoring his Indy 500 win last year. Having that chance to come back to Formula One and Ferrari, that might be really, really tempting for Marcus, because he's managed to win Indy. If Ferrari are really good and they could win Monaco, that could be the second stage towards the Triple Crown perhaps. But then again, I think Marcus has got something really good in IndyCar, so I doubt that he would want to try and spoil all of that a little bit too soon, but potentially an option, a little bit out there. Either way, you need a calming force at Ferrari at the moment, and Albon, he's a really cool cat, and he does love his cats, as you see on his Instagram, quite a lot. But he's already been through the number 2 ringer alongside Max. He's already been chewed up and spat out by Red Bull. He was lucky to come back into Formula One with Williams. Williams also has the legacy. But when you really have to boil it down, could he handle the pressure? Well, yes, certainly, he's done it before, but should he have to though?